Tzeentch is the Changer of Ways, one of the four Chaos Gods in the Warhammer universe, and the Lord of Sorcery. His followers, like the Flamers and the Horrors of Tzeentch, generally wield magic to a far greater extent than the followers of other Chaos Gods, and most of the demons under his control use Eldritch Fire, which, in this mod, Call of Warhammer, is represented with the Greek Fire Thrower animation from the Crusaders expansion. So after the disaster that was my first outing with Tzeentch against Maximus, you guys should check that replay out if you haven't already, I had a better understanding of how to utilize Tzeentch to its fullest potential, and I realized that Horrors and Flamers are going to be the core of your army if you want to bring a lore-friendly army. So I am playing against Captain Gorguts today on Call of Warhammer. He's another one of my viewers who managed to get his hands on the mod. I'm still working on trying to get that figured out for you guys. Reptilicus is trying to get it installed, and then he will record a video that will hopefully be able to show you guys how to get onto the mod. I'm not going to uninstall this mod. It's too much of a pain in the ass. I'm going to try to get other people to help you do that and try to work with them as well. But let's get into the replay now. So I'm playing against the Orcs. Captain Gorguts is commanding the Orcs. My army consists of one Pink Horror of Tzeentch, two Flamers of Tzeentch who are unleashing a ton of devastating volleys at the moment into this Orc line. And then I have a bunch of Chaos Warrior Halberds and a couple of Chaos Warriors. And I don't actually think I have any Cavalry in this game. I think I went for an only infantry build. So the Flamers are unique in this mod in a lot of ways. They are faster than regular infantry and about on par with exhausted heavy cavalry in terms of speed, but they're actually capable of kiting and running away while shooting their flames, which makes them very, very useful. If you can see right now, in the middle of my formation, a lot of my followers, the Chaos Marauders of Tzeentch, and some of my warriors have gotten into melee combat. His trolls, the Greenskin trolls, have gotten into combat as well, trying to cut through my main line, but I have my Flamers out on the flanks and trying to get them to shoot in, and I can kite with them. I can use them pretty effectively to get out on the flanks, then shoot through the mass of Greenskins that are now moving up towards the center of my formation. Out on the flanks, he has some Savage Boar Boys moving out, trying to tie down my Flamers of Tzeentch. I'm going to counter with some of my Chaos Warrior Halberds. Little glitchy right there. Gonna try to tie them down, see what I can kill. If he gets caught up in melee here against my Halberds, he will get butchered. And I have a bunch of my Horrors shooting in as he tries to run away. So they aren't quite as devastating as the Greek Fire Thrower is in the Crusaders expansion, just because the Crusaders expansion ignored armor, I believe. Like, it basically, if it hit anything, it could kill them in a single shot. In this mod, they've toned down the damage a little bit. You can see sometimes the fire will cut through their line and won't kill everything, but they still do a ridiculous amount of damage, and you can see, if given any amount of time to shoot at all, they will just slice through opposing units like butter and cause a ton of morale penalties while doing so. So in the center, a bunch of his Black Orcs have tied down some of my Chaos Warrior Halberds. I actually like that engagement a lot. The Halberds are extremely good in Medieval 2 and Call of Warhammer specifically because they have some really good attack animations. Also have some of my regular Warriors of Chaos in there. They aren't quite as good as the Halberd Warrior just because their animations aren't quite as good. They can't stun lock people quite as effectively, but they do a ton of damage. Very tanky main line for me. But my army is very, very small, and I don't have a lot of mobility. So Gorguts is going to be trying to use his Boar Boys to harass me on the flanks. And you can see right here, I made a micro mistake. My Flamers got tied down by his Savage Boar Boys, and he's actually done a lot of damage to this Flamer unit, and that is my general. So, you look at my general right there, he's kind of floating, he looks really goofy, he actually doesn't look like the regular Flamers at all, but if I lose my gen here, that would be pretty bad. Chaos can have some morale issues, especially with the main line of Marauders, the kind of low-tier meat shield unit. Those guys will start routing if you have your general die, and they're in a melee engagement that they don't really like to have. But so far, oh my god, just cutting swaths of destruction through the Greenskin line. These are goblins right now getting shot to pieces by my Flamers of Tzeentch. This is the other unit of Flamers that I have, and you can see they've just got like 75, 80 kills, just routed an entire unit in only a couple seconds. So the lower tier units, they can cut through very, very quickly. Higher tier stuff, they do take some more time, but they are doing so much damage to the right flank of the Greenskins at the moment, and a bit of a micro mistake actually from Gorguts. He needs to get his boars under control and try to get them into melee. Now, Flamers are also really tanky as well, and they aren't horrible in melee combat. They will die to charges from Savage Boar Boys as he's trying to get in right now, but I am just, I'm shredding that unit with these Flamers. I love the animation for it. It looks so awesome, and they shoot really fast too. So there's really not a whole lot of downsides to the Flamers except that they're very expensive. But when you're playing a 30,000 or 50,000 gold crown game in Call of Warhammer. You can definitely afford at least a couple of them. Black Orcs in melee, not doing super well. I am surrounding him with my halberds, and the main engagement is going pretty well for me. What he has the advantage in this game is the trolls. They're going to be what really helps him win this battle. He needs to have his Black Orcs survive, make sure his gen does not die, and then give the trolls time to cut through my main line. They are doing a ton of damage to me at the moment, probably up to 150 or 200 kills so far, because they first ran into a unit of Marauders, which are a low tier unit for Chaos. But I am trying my best to get the Flamers into a flanking position and just shoot into the back of his line while he's tied down. So you can see I'm running away right now. He is trying to chase me off with some of these savage orc boys, and I'm doing my best to just get away. Only 2 Flamers left in my general unit, the general himself and 1 Flamer. So if my gen dies here, that is going to be bad for me. I'm doing my best to keep him alive, just run around and kite a little bit with him. My horrors are long gone by now. He got his savage boar boys into them, and my main line is doing relatively well, but he now has free reign to start charging me in the back if I'm not careful with how I use my halberd. So I do have 1 halberd in the back trying to make sure that he doesn't get into the back of my lines, but do have more Flamers shooting in on the flanks. And in the center, this is where this is going to be determined. I have my halberds free on my right flank and kind of cutting into the flank of his Black Orcs, and I kind of missed micro a little bit. I wanted to get a full rear charge off, and they got tied down. So you can see like most of the unit for the halberds isn't actually tied down and cutting through his Black Orcs at the moment, but I do have them surrounded, and I should be able to cut through and kill his gen relatively soon here, which would definitely turn the balance board very much in my favor. In the center, a couple of units not doing a whole lot. I've cut through a lot of his greenskins, but his trolls are still up to... They still have 10 men left in the unit, so trolls are still at full strength and still doing a ton of damage in the center. And he's trying to tie down his Flamers, my Flamers, with the Savage Boar Boys, and having some trouble cutting through them, but I'm starting to lose a lot of my magic-wielding units, and I finally cut through his gen at this point. Very big deal for me, because Greenskins do have morale problems when their general dies. And the biggest problem for me now is that he still has his trolls alive, and he still has his cavalry alive. I do have a lot of halberds left on the field, which is good for me, and there is routing on his main line, which is also important, but still haven't routed the Black Orcs yet. I think that's going to happen pretty soon here, actually. But the trolls are still definitely the biggest threat to me. And he still has 2 wolf warriors out on each flank, goblin riding wolf warriors, shooting in on my flanks and just kind of harassing my guys. You can see the trolls right there, tied up with some halberd warriors. That's not an even fight at all, even though halberds are extremely good, and they can stun lock the trolls for a little bit. If it's just going to be down to one-on-one with these trolls, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. But more halberds coming in from behind, going to be able to completely surround them, and this is where the animations for the halberds are really going to show their effectiveness. You can kind of just see me stun locking these trolls into oblivion, not getting a ton of attacks off. That troll over on the right side was actually not attacking at all, just kept getting hit over and over again, kept getting stun locked, and that's where the halberds, why they're so good in Medieval 2, is that they will just keep attacking with these little short poke animations, and the units that have a longer attack animation, like a greatsword or the trolls, they don't get to attack very often because they keep getting stun locked. So you can see his Black Orcs routing, his goblins are routing at this point. Balance bar is misleading at this point, but it's because his trolls are still in the field. He doesn't have a lot of units still locked down in melee combat that aren't routing. Some of his guys will come back pretty soon here, but I have been able to rout a lot of my guys, and I kept my general alive. Lost a ton of my Flamers to one of his cav units, but managed to pull away, and he is still alive, still giving the morale buffs and rallies to my men to keep them in the fight. And I have his trolls completely surrounded at this point, just stabbing them, and even though I still haven't killed very many of them, pretty soon here, they are down to 7, they should rout pretty soon. Maybe not rout, but they'll definitely die relatively soon, surrounded by that many Chaos Halberds. But it doesn't really matter, because I have most of his line routed anyway, and a lot of the biggest reason was that I just had my Flamers shooting in while his main line was fighting, and that just caused a ton of morale damage, and just regular killing to his line, and that meant that the Greenskins were probably going to rout. I think on higher funds, Greenskins are a real problem for Chaos because they can spam trolls, and I'm honestly not sure if any faction in the game has a good answer to a faction spamming trolls. 3 or 4 trolls on the field at once is extremely hard to deal with unless you're spamming trolls yourself, so That is a problem that Chaos has for sure, but I think that's a problem that most factions in the game have because trolls are ridiculous. 30 attack and 29 defense and 8 hit points. It just becomes a nightmare to try to cut through those. But we're going to route the Black Orcs here as we get 1 or 2 more flamer shots into the rear of those Black Orcs without their general. They're panicking and running from the field. And I'm pretty much going to take the field at this point. Now, balance bar, still 50-50. But Gorguts is going to take it upon himself to pull the trigger and call it a game here. He's going to admit defeat. I'm not sure I like that. I think that I had a relatively large advantage, but it's one of those things where if you have a chance to win, you should try to win. Especially when you have a unit like Trolls, even though they are surrounded by halberds and stuff like that. You could definitely leave them in the fight a little bit longer and see if maybe you kill my gen and start causing a rout on my side of things. I would have liked if he stayed a little bit longer, but that was the game. I think I used my flamers pretty effectively there on the flanks, harassing, killing his cavalry, and getting some shots into his main line. Really small army. I wouldn't say this was a good army build. I don't know if Tzeentch, if you want to bring a lore-friendly army, is an amazing faction, but they are a lot of fun to use, and they do bring a different side of warfare to the battlefield than something like Khorne or the Empire for sure. So, a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later.